Alright, hello people, I'm the dude and this is my review, rant, whatever you want to call it, of the series The Collector. First of all, my allergies are going a little crazy at the moment, so there's that, which is lovely. But anyways, The Collector, there's two movies in this series. The first one's called The Collector and the second one's called The Collection. They use the same formula, they don't change it up much between the two movies. They're very similar. But they're decent horror movies. They're pretty good. If you like I think it's the second Saw movie. I don't remember if it has a subtitle or whatever. I'm pretty sure it's the second one where he grabs a bunch of people and puts them in a house, and then he booby traps the house. Whereas the other Saw movies, it's usually they're locked in a room with a trap, or they're locked in like some kind of box or something. They're trapped in one place, and they have to find a way to get out of the trap alive. This is more about them kind of being in a rat maze where they have freedom to move, but everywhere they go there's traps, if that makes sense. These two movies follow that formula pretty closely, and the bad guy in this one, unlike Jigsaw, he's more like hands-on. He's in the house or the hotel in the second movie. He's there with them, and usually he's either chasing them or trying to torture one of them, or trying to find them, that kind of thing. He's actually there, involved in it, whereas Jigsaw was kind of behind the scenes. You didn't really see him much, and if you did, they didn't even know that he was the killer. In this case, the bad guy's running around with this crazy, evil-looking mask and these really weird, like, silver eyes. It's kind of like Pitch Black, Vin Diesel in Pitch Black. That's what his eyes look like. But he's always there. He's always chasing them around, trying to find them, trying to harm them, trying to capture them, stuff like that. And it turns out pretty good. I mean, that second movie in the Saw series was always my favorite anyways. I think the first one was really good, and I liked the second one even better. After that, they started doing the same formula over and over and over again, and it kind of got boring for me. Yes, the traps were different, but the plot was basically point for point identical. It was always, he'd stick someone in a trap and they have to choose between being mutilated or being dead. Mutilating themselves somehow to get out of the trap, or being dead, or they're against a clock, like there's a certain amount of time for them to get out, stuff like that. But it was very predictable, and it got boring after a while. These two, like I said, they're very much like the second movie, which was very different from the other Saw movies in the way it played out. I don't know, not fundamentally different, but the way that they went about it was different. And in the first movie, like I said, he's in a house. The bad guy rigs up a house with traps. There's a family in the house. And the hero isn't actually someone from the family. He's from outside the family. He decides to break into the house. He's some kind of contractor that happened to be working on the house. He decides to break in the house and steal a diamond out of the safe. That's his motivation. That's why he's there. And I swear this guy is like a cosmic joke or something. I mean, he picks the one day of the year, the one day out of, 256 to break into this house, the one wrong day. Because this is the exact day that the bad guy decides to break in, set up all these crazy nasty traps, capture the family, do nasty things, torture people, all this stuff. So this guy he must have the worst luck in the universe. Or maybe it's karma for him trying to steal the diamond or whatever. But anyways, he breaks into the house just fine. Because apparently for some reason all the locks on the doors work from the outside. They just don't work from the inside anymore. But anyways, he gets into the house. He somehow stumbles his way through the house, bungles his way up to the second floor or something like that, to the safe, and doesn't trip any of the traps. I don't know how the hell he manages this. For some reason the bad guy didn't trap the stairway leading up to the second floor. There's no traps there. I don't know why. And I guess he didn't trap the hallway in front of the door that he came in. I think he came in the back door. But anyways, I don't know how he got through the house all the way up to the top floor without tripping any of the traps. It's ridiculous. But somehow he manages it. He gets to the top floor, and there's going to be a whole bunch of spoilers at this point. If you care about spoilers, stop the recording or when we stop the video or whatever. He gets to the second floor. He hears a lot of screaming from one of the vents. It turns out the bad guy has the mom and the dad of the family in the basement, and he's torturing them. And at this point, it's kind of a race against the clock, basically. He has to somehow stay away from the bad guy, avoid all the traps, which they're everywhere. There's traps on the windows, there's traps in the hallways, There's traps attached to doorknobs. There's traps attached to everything in the house that could be used as a weapon. There's a trap attached to that. Everywhere he goes, everything he does, there's a trap. So he has to avoid all the traps. He has to run away from the bad guy, who every once in a while he'll hear Harkin making noise, so he'll come to try and find him. And it's really cool the couple of different ways that Harkin throws him off the scent. One of the best ones involves a cat. Just know that there's a cat, and the cat doesn't last long. But that was a really cool scene. I like that scene. But throughout the first movie, he's basically just trying to escape the bad guy, trying to avoid the traps. He tries to rescue the family. That doesn't work out at all. He promises the dad. He finds the dad. The dad says, go find my daughter, the younger daughter. She's supposed to be in the house somewhere. He's like, go find her. You have to rescue her. I can't remember her name. I think it's like Hannah or something like that. So Harkin goes and looks for her. Can't find her. Comes back. He promised he'd come back for the dad. Comes back for him. He's already dead. So he failed the dad. The mom is in another room adjacent. He goes to save her. Gets her out of her handcuffs and the trap and all that. They get outside. The mom sees the dad, who is at this point hung upside down and disemboweled and slashed up and all mutilated. So she goes bolting like a moron. Of course she dies. Later in the movie, the older daughter shows up. Like I said, you can get in from outside. From outside the house, the locks still work. But once you get inside, if you close the door, you can't get back out. So of course the older daughter comes in with her boyfriend. They close the door, so they have no chance of getting out. They don't know this yet, but they're stuck. They start doing kind of like this softcore porn thing, and in the kitchen, the bad guy sees them. Harkin sees them. Harkin tries to get there before the bad guy. Doesn't quite manage it. Spoiler, he doesn't manage it. The boyfriend bites it really nastily, the way he dies. It involves bear traps. Lots of them. So the boyfriend, bites it horribly. Harkin gets away. I don't think the bad guy saw him at that point. The bad guy captures the older daughter. He ties her up to the stairway for whatever reason. And the older daughter was smart enough to call 911 on her cell phone while the boyfriend was being killed. She drops her cell phone, so it's still active. 911 is still on the line. They send a cop to check it out. You'd think they'd send more cops, hearing her screaming over the phone and all that stuff, hearing that nasty things are happening. But no, they send one cop. one singular cop. He shows up. The bad guy goes out. Of course, the bad guy's got a trap set up outside for the cop. Pretty nasty one, too. You probably won't see it coming until it happens. Another one of the better kills in the first movie. While he's distracted by the cop, Harkin saves the older daughter, and of course, instantaneously, we're talking about within like 10 seconds of him saving her, she runs off and gets hit by a really nasty trap, and she's dead. So basically, it's a recurring theme to the first movie. He can't save anyone. He told the dad he was going to come back for him. He didn't make it. He told the mom that he was going to save her and save her daughter and all this stuff. She freaks out. She gets killed. He rescues the older daughter from the stairway. She's like wrapped up in barbed wire or something like that. He rescues her. She freaks out for whatever reason. She goes running off. She dies instantly. He's just, his batting average is terrible, basically. And then at the end of the movie, it ends up being the bad guy, Harkin, and the younger daughter, who he couldn't find throughout most of the movie because she was hiding. She was the smartest one out of the entire movie. She was hiding in I think it was like the laundry room or something like that. I can't remember where she was hiding, but she pops out during the last fourth of the movie, and it becomes Harkin and her against the bad guy. Whereas before it was Harkin running around trying to be sneaky, trying to hide and avoid the traps. Now Harkin has to run around with the girl in tow, with the bad guy chasing him around the house. It was a pretty cool set of scenes. Long story short, the bad guy knocks him out, captures Harkin. He loses the girl. The bad guy gets distracted for some reason. I can't remember why. Harkin gets out of the trap. And then they have their kind of showdown at the end. And the climax is Harkin uses the bad guy's traps against him. He uses one of his own traps to take him out at the end of the movie. And apparently, he didn't do a good enough job. The trap disables him at the very least. And Harkin just runs away instead of finishing him off, which he could have done very easily. But then, the bad guy'd be gone and there wouldn't be a sequel and, all that stuff. So, the bad guy gets disabled, Harkin gets out of the house, escapes. The cops show up. I'm assuming the cops kept the little girl, She's the only survivor at this point other than Harkin, but we don't really see what happens to her. Whatever happens to her is off camera. I'm assuming the cops have her somewhere. I'm assuming she's okay. But Harkin, on the other hand, is not so lucky. Really cool ending. I liked the ending of the first movie quite a bit. They established earlier in the movie that after the bad guy shows up and, sets up the traps, tortures the family and all this stuff, he either kills them all if he doesn't want them, or he keeps them in these trunks, like a metal suitcase, basically. He puts them in these big trunks, and he keeps them for his collection. That's why he's called the Collector. So, at the end of the at the beginning of this movie, the trunk is sitting in front of the family, and a person from the last family that he had tortured was in the trunk. At the end of this movie, Harkin becomes the guy in the trunk. Harkin becomes the guy in the box because the bad guy catches up to the ambulance, rams it off the road, captures Harkin, and throws him in the trunk. So he's now the bait for the next family. Harkin is. You think he gets away, you think he's safe, you think he made it out. No. No, he's in the box with no idea what nasty, gruesome things await him. And whenever the bad guy's done torturing him, he's going to be in the box for the next family, the bait, basically. So it's a pretty hopeless ending for Harkin. You don't think he has a chance. You think he's just, screwed, basically. And then the second movie, which is called The Collection, it picks up in this club. A couple of friends walk into a club. They're having a good time. And it turns out the bad guy either, I guess he owns the club or something, because there's no way he could rig all these traps if he didn't own it. If there was anyone else there, they would have stopped him or seen him or reported him or something. So I'm guessing he owns this building. And, 10 minutes-ish into the movie, they get to the club, they walk in the club, and then shit just hits the fan. There's this giant spinning, rotary-bladed, massive, what are those farming machines called? They've got like the giant spinning blades on the front, and they're just there to shear wheat and stuff like that. It's like one of those, except he attached it to the ceiling, and someone triggers the trap. I think it's the main character, Elena. She triggers the trap. It comes rotating down onto the dance floor and just mows everyone down. I mean, imagine one of those old lawnmowers where it's just a blade and you're powering it by pushing it forward. Like one of those blades, except it's massive and it's just mowing its way across the dance floor, just chopping people to bits. So 90% of the people in the club get killed just outright, right off the bat, from the giant spinning blade. A good chunk more of them run into this hallway and they get trapped in another trap and they get killed. And then the few that are left, they're kind of just scattered running around the club. They run into traps, or the bad guy walks up and slashes their throat or stabs them or kills them. At the end, I think the only two that actually make it out of the club, this isn't the end of the movie, this is the end of the club scene. The club scene is not the whole movie, it's just a short chunk of it at the beginning. I think the only two that make it out are Harkin and Elena. They're in this hallway with various people in disarray, either in a trap, dying, or already dead, or freaking out and screaming, stuff like that. There's a window at the end of the hallway. And Elena's at one end of the hallway, Harkin has made it over to the window. The bad guy walks into the room behind Elena. And Harkin sees this, and instead of, warning her or trying to help her or anything like that, he grabs a dead body from the floor, jumps out this third-story fucking window, riding the body down to the ground, bounces off a car, snaps his arm basically in half, and escapes. So whatever the fuck the bad guy did to him in between the first movie and this one, it made this guy confident enough to jump out of a third-story window. Because he really wanted out of there. He left Elena behind. He ditched her. The bad guy got her. And that's the crux of the second movie. Elena's father is rich or something like that. He has some kind of military-trained guy on his payroll, and he sends that guy to save Elena. And the guy, who is Beecher from the Oz series on HBO, if you've seen Oz, he's Beecher from that series. I'll just call him Beecher. I don't remember what his name is in this, but we'll call him Beecher. Beecher, he shows up to Harkin's hospital room, and he's like, I need you to show me how to get to the bad guy's lair, how to find him, that kind of thing. And out of cosmic coincidence, Harkin just happened to, he, like, mutilated his arm on the way to the bad guy's lair, or something like that, so he knows how to get there. It's kind of like, if you've seen Sneakers, the movie, it's about spies, and the main guy, he gets captured, they put a hood on his head, and they recreate the drive from where he was to the bad guy's hideout just from hearing alone. It was a really cool scene. If you haven't seen that movie, it's a really good movie. Robert Redford is the main guy. But anyways, it's kind of like that. Harkin, he mutilates his arm every time they make like a left or a right turn, or every time there's a bump, or if he hears something or something like that. So basically, he knows how to get to the bad guy's lair. He's figured it out. I don't know why he would have been concerned with that at the time. I'd have been more concerned with, I am fucked, I'm gonna get tortured to death, life sucks, you know, that kind of thing. But no, he took time out to road map the way to the bad guy's lair. But anyways, Beecher wants to get Harkin to help him find the lair. And Harkin's like, okay, I'll take you there, I'll take you to the place, but I'm not going inside. Of course that doesn't pan out for Harkin. Of course he gets locked inside. Then he has to, you know, survive again and find his way out. Especially if you've seen the trailer. The trailer, it shows that Harkin's clearly in the movie throughout the movie. So, anyways, he shows them to the lair. He gets locked inside because Beecher drags him in, basically. He's like, I know you want to leave, but I don't care. I want to save Elena. You're going to help. And he drags him, you know, in with them. There's like kind of squad of armed guys with, you know, vests and equipment and all this stuff. They look like paramilitary or whatever. It doesn't work out good for them. You know, long story short, they don't make it. they might have guns and think that they're you know, trained for this kind of thing. No, they're not. It doesn't work out. Throughout the movie, they're stuck in this hotel. It's like this abandoned hotel. That's the bad guy's lair. And of course, once they get in, they can't get out. And of course, there's traps everywhere. The bad guy's chasing. He takes turns chasing Elena, who he had captured from the club, chasing the paramilitary guys, chasing Harkin, you know, that kind of thing. He takes turns chasing all of them. Their goal, the good guys' goal, is to find Elena. By the time they find her, the bad guys captured some of their team, so they want to find their team, so they go to find them. By that time, there's really no one left. And then they have to get out. They have to somehow escape. So nothing really that they do really works out well for them. Everywhere they go, they're tripping traps. Every turn they make, the bad guys there are waiting for them. So nothing really works out to plan. They do eventually find Elena, but by that time there's 3 of them left, I think. When they finally meet up with her, most of the squad is dead already because of traps, or the bad guy, one of the two. And once they find her, things just go even further downhill because the Beecher, the main guy, he has this fight with the bad guy, this knife fight. And at the time I was thinking, okay, Beecher's this paramilitary guy, he'll kick the crap out of him, right? No, wrong. The bad guy just, he like slices and dices him in this knife fight. Just takes out his arms and his legs and stabs him. And all. By the end of the fight, Beecher's like a bloody mess. And he falls to the ground. And at that point, the only one left is Harkin, Elena, and the bad guy. They're the only ones still alive. Everyone else is either dead or in the process of dying, one of the two. Oh yeah, and the building's on fire too, by this point. One of the traps that the bad guy had set up was this cage kind of fell on them, and he just walked around the cage and lit the room on fire, basically. So they're stuck in this giant metal cage. They can't get out, and he just sets the building on fire around them. That's the way he's going to get rid of them. They get out of the cage, of course. Harkin, when he broke his arm at the beginning of the movie, somehow he can use his arm, now that it's broken, to reach through the cage bars and use his like limp arm, which is really nasty scene. It's really nasty, but he uses like his limp broken arm to whack the lock on the cage to open it up. So they get out of that, but the building's on fire. Fast forward a bit, Beecher has his knife fight and loses terribly, and after that, I don't really know what happened. I mean, we've proven up until this point that the bad guy can handle himself in a fight. I mean, especially the fight with Beecher. He showed that he's a badass in hand-to-hand combat. Somehow Harkin gets the upper hand. I don't know how. Harkin doesn't know how to fight for shit. You can tell he's completely inept when it comes to hand-to-hand combat. Somehow he gets the upper hand on the bad guy and just starts wailing on him. And he's like punching him and kicking him and throwing him through things and bashing him into walls and all kinds of stuff. It's like, it's revenge time, basically, for everything that's happened to Harkin. He's taking it all out on the bad guy right here. And one of the coolest scenes in either one of the movies, Harkin is, he's doing his thing. He's beating the crap out of the bad guy. The bad guy still has a fucking knife in his hand. He takes the knife and sticks it through the side of Harkin's face, right? Like, right through where his mouth and teeth are. He, like, sticks it through the side of his face right there. Fucks up the side of his face. Harkin doesn't even blink. It doesn't even phases him. He's just still beating the shit out of the bad guy. I guess he's so amped at that point. He wants his revenge so bad. He doesn't even care that, like, half of his face is torn now. And he keeps beating the crap out of him, throwing him through things. The ending for the bad guy, where he's supposed to die, spoiler, he doesn't. They never do. Harkin throws him down this pit where the bad guy had dumped all these dead bodies. And for some reason, the pit it's like covered in gasoline. I don't know why. I have no idea why, but it just happens to be. So the bad guy falls down the pit. Harkin lights a piece of, I think it's like his shirt or something, lights it on fire, and then drops it down the pit and sets it on fire. So the idea for the audience is that, okay, the bad guy is well and truly on fire. He's going to die. He's on fire. It's the end for the bad guy. No, he doesn't die. If Harkin really wanted to kill him, he had a knife in his hand at the time. He should have just, sawed his head off or something. or went and got the shotgun that the bad guy had earlier and blown his face off. Something like that. Something definitive. Something not ambiguous. Then he would have known for a fact that he's well and truly gone. No, he knocks him down the pit and lights him on fire and all that. So they get outside. Another one of the coolest scenes. Elena is near the door, near the exit. And Harkin he's at the far end of the hall, and the hall's on fire. The whole place is on fire. And there's no way they can get to each other. So you're thinking at this point in the movie, Harkin is going to die. You're thinking he beat the bad guy. His purpose is served. Now he's going to die with the hotel. He's going to burn. And it doesn't work out that way, which is really cool. Elena starts bashing these specimen jars. I don't know how else to put it. They're like these giant containers with body parts sewn together and really crazy stuff. If you've seen House on Haunted Hill, when they go into the basement, there's these different specimens and like on plaques and in jars and nailed to the walls and stuff like that. It's like that. She starts bashing them and breaks them open, and they're all filled with water. And at the time of that scene, I hadn't even thought about that. You'd think that'd be obvious. There's these giant containers full of water, like huge, massive containers full of water. There's fire everywhere. Fire is the problem. Use the water. You think that'd be obvious, but I don't know if the story, if I was just paying too close attention to the story or what was happening or whatever, but I didn't even think about it at the time. I just thought Harkin was dead. But no, she starts bashing open these containers, and the water spills out, gets the fire out of the way, and they both make it outside. So basically, Harkin saves her, and then she saves Harkin at the end of the movie. So they're both outside. The cops are everywhere. They're safe for the moment. A general good ending. Bad guy loses. Good guys win. Harkin, he walks over to one of the trunks. He's like looking through all the dead bodies and all the stuff they pulled out. Walks over to one of the trunks and he finds the mask. The mask that the bad guy's been wearing throughout the first two movies. And it's singed, but there's no body attached to it. So the bad guy's not there, hence he's still alive somewhere. All they have is the mask. So after that, they have their little, happy reunion thing, her and her father. Harkin leaves with the cops, and the bad guy doesn't, ram him off the road and capture him this time. The movie flashes forward a bit. I think it's like a month or 3 months. And this was by far my favorite point out of the two movies. I think I like the first movie better as a whole, but as far as one scene goes, this is my favorite scene, the ending of the second movie. If you don't want it spoiled, like I said somewhere at the beginning of the movie, there were going to be spoilers, and there's been plenty so far, but if you don't want the ending of the second movie, the ending of the series spoiled, stop now and go watch the movie. I'm going to assume if you're still here, you want to hear the ending. So anyways, it flashes forward a couple of months, and someone is walking into their house. You can't see their face. You don't know who they are. At this point, I was thinking it's probably Harkin. Harkin is walking into his house, and he notices, whoever it is, notices something's off. He notices that something isn't right, and he pulls a knife out of his pocket. And I'm thinking, okay, the bad guy's still alive. He got away. He caught up to Harkin. He's waiting in his house, and now he's going to kill him. that'll be the end of the series. Because that's usually how these things end, for the most part. In movies like this, usually the bad guy wins at the end. Whatever his objective is, it's usually in the bad guy's favor. So I'm thinking, okay, Harkin walked into his house, pulled out his knife because he noticed something was wrong, and the bad guy's going to be there waiting for him. So the guy with the knife, whoever it is, we still can't see his face, walks through the house. Someone walks up behind him and pulls a gun on him. And I'm thinking, okay, the bad guy's behind him, he's going to shoot him and kill him. And Harkin is going to lose. No, it's much better than that. It turns out the guy that walked into his house and pulled out the knife and noticed something was off was the bad guy of the series. This is his normal house. He doesn't have his mask on, it isn't a lair. There's not dead bodies, stapled to the wall. This is just a regular house. This is his day life, or whatever you want to call it. The bad guy walks into his house, notices something's off, pulls his knife, starts looking around, and Harkin walks up behind him with a gun. So Harkin has the drop on the bad guy in his own home. And Harkin starts telling him all of the things he's going to do to him. The bad guy asks him, "Are you going to kill me?" He says, "No. I'm gonna put you through everything you put me through." He's going to stick him in a box and, torture him and, put him through all the traps and the mazes and all that stuff. Every horrible thing that Harkin has gone through in the first 2 movies, he's going to put the bad guy through. And I thought that was such a fucking great ending. That the first movie was all about Harkin is in the box, right? Harkin is the one that has to worry about the truly nasty things that are going to happen to him. I mean, just imagine what would be going through your mind. This guy's a crazy fuck. He likes to torture people. He likes to set traps up, use like hooks and, sharp devices to just make your life hell. And at the end of the first movie, you're stuck in a box waiting for him to do these nasty things to you. At the end of the second movie, the roles are reversed. Harkin is the one that's telling the guy what he's going to do to him, and at the end of the movie, he shoves him into one of the trunks and slams the lid shut. So the bad guy is the one in the box. The bad guy is the one that has to think about what's going to happen to him. All the nasty things that are, to come. Very cool ending. I really liked it a lot. And the series as a whole, I mean, it's only 2 movies, but technically that's still a series. But anyways, the 2 movies, I like them both quite a bit. As far as horror movies go, I think if you compare them to like the great horror movies of all time, they're not really that great. It's just that horror movies have declined. I think what most people would agree about that, horror movies overall have declined over the years. They've degraded into kind of just bland affairs of boredom. There's no real... They don't know what horror is anymore. That's just the best way to put it. But anyways, this one, at the very least, the endings were good. I liked the endings. The first one I kind of saw coming. I knew someone, when they established that he puts people in the box and he takes them to the next family, I knew someone was going to end up in the box. It was pretty obvious. I didn't actually think it was going to be Harkin. I thought it was going to be the daughter that ended up in the box. But it ends up being Harkin, which was pretty cool. The second movie, I didn't see the ending coming at all. Harkin putting the bad guy in the box and ending up the victor at the end of the movie. I didn't see that coming at all. That was really cool. But yeah, I mean, the movies they're not really character pieces, but they're still decently acted. They've got good production values. They look good. They sound good. They're not B movies at all. I don't think they got much acclaim or press or anything like that. I haven't heard people talking about them anywhere. They don't play them on TV much. It seemed like they didn't get much credit, but they're not bad. Especially if you like the Saw movies. They play out, similarly in that there's traps and people have to avoid the traps or solve them, that kind of thing. And with how popular the Saw movies were, you'd think these movies would be really popular, but I haven't heard much about them, so maybe they weren't. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, comparative to the horror movies we get these days, these were actually pretty good. I like them. It's kind of like Home Alone if Macaulay Culkin was a psychopath. Instead of setting up like these benign traps that are meant to be funny, if Macaulay Culkin went around using like knives and blades and acid and every other nasty thing you can think of when making the traps to physically harm people. That's basically the premise in a nutshell. And it's a pretty cool premise, honestly. I don't know if people these days even know what Home Alone is. I would assume they do. I mean, they play it on HBO all the time, especially around Christmas. I don't know. Anyways, Home Alone is this old series where Macaulay Culkin, this little kid, every movie in the series some kind of bad guys show up. In the first movie, they want to rob the house. In the second movie, I think they want to get something from him. Like he has something that they want or something like that. But anyways, the bad guys are always breaking into some kind of house or apartment or building or whatever. And Macaulay Culkin knows they're coming beforehand, so he sets up all these little goofy traps. Like I said, this is a kid's movie. It's all benign. Like, they slip and fall, and it's funny. Or he sets up like a paint can attached to some kind of wire, and when they trip the wire, the paint can hits them in the face and they fall down. Stuff like that. It's the same idea in these movies. It's just dialed up to 100. I mean, instead of it being a paint can, it's like, you know, spikes attached to a piece of wood or something that's going to stake someone or something like that. The traps are very much more insidious. They have ill intentions, that kind of thing. But yeah, I like the movies. I recommend them. I do. That's why I made this video. Like I said, I don't think they got much credit. I haven't heard anyone say anything about them at all. Nothing. And they were actually pretty damn good, so I figured I'd mention them in case people like horror movies and they missed these two. Like I said, as a whole, I think the first one was better. As a packaged deal, as a whole movie, I think the first one was better. The second one was more, as far as the traps go, and the formula and all that, and how things are going to play out, it's very similar to the first one, so you kind of know how it's going to go. But the beginning was really bloody and nasty, especially that scene with the spinning blade thing. I didn't see that coming at all until it happened. That was just nasty. And then the ending, like I said, the ending was really great. I mean, I couldn't have made a better ending for that movie. Given the ending of the first movie, I couldn't have picked a better ending for the second movie. That was the perfect ending for the second movie. So yeah, as a whole, as the two movies, the series goes, I liked it quite a bit. I mean, if you like horror movies, go find them and watch them. They're called The Collector and The Collection is the second one. The first one is called The Collector because he's collecting people. That's what he does. He finds families, tortures them and all that, finds the one that he wants out of the family and then sticks them in the trunk and keeps them, takes them with him. And then the second one's called The Collection because the ones that he keeps alive in his collection are in that hotel. This is his base of operations. So the people that he's collected so far over time are in this hotel, stuck in this hotel. That's what's called The Collection. But yeah, it was a cool premise. It kind of fed off Saw, basically. Or at least it tried to feed off the popularity of Saw. Like I said, it plays out a lot like Saw. But I think as a series, I like these two movies better than Saw as a series. I think the first movie, actually probably, the first movie out of Saw was probably better than these two movies. But as a series, Saw just got boring. It just declined. It just kept going downhill. I mean, everything became predictable. You knew how the formula was going to play out. You knew what was going to happen for the most part. There might be like a twist or two, but for the most part, point for point, you knew what was going to happen. And I don't know, it just got boring for me. This didn't get boring, this series. Of course, it's only 2 movies long. It didn't outstay its welcome, but it didn't get boring. Let's just put it that way. So yeah, if you like horror movies, check them out. They're pretty good. I'll see you guys next time. Because this is the exact day that the bad guy decides to break in, set up all these crazy nasty traps, capture the family, do nasty things, torture people, all this stuff. So this guy he must have the worst luck in the universe. Or maybe it's karma for him trying to steal the diamond or whatever. But anyways, he breaks into the house just fine. Because apparently for some reason all the locks on the doors work from the outside. They just don't work from the inside anymore. But anyways, he gets into the house. He somehow stumbles his way through the house, bungles his way up to the second floor or something like that, to the safe, and doesn't trip any of the traps. I don't know how the hell he manages this. For some reason, the bad guy didn't trap the stairway leading up to the second floor. There's no traps there. I don't know why. And I guess he didn't trap the hallway in front of the door that he came in. I think he came in the back door. But anyways, I don't know how he got through the house all the way up to the top floor without tripping any of the traps. It's ridiculous. But somehow he manages it. He gets to the top floor, and there's going to be a whole bunch of spoilers at this point. If you care about spoilers, stop. Alright, hello people. I'm the dude, and this is my review, rant, whatever you want to call it, of the series The Collector. First of all, my allergies are going a little crazy at the moment, so there's that, which is lovely. But anyways, The Collector. It is, there's two movies in this series. The first one's called The Collector, and the second one's called The Collection. They use the same formula. They don't change it up much between the two movies. They're very similar, but they're decent horror movies. They're pretty good. If you like I think it's the second Saw movie. I don't remember if it has a subtitle or whatever. I'm pretty sure it's the second one where he grabs a bunch of people and puts them in a house, and then he booby traps the house. Whereas the other Saw movies, it's usually they're locked in a room with a trap, or they're locked in like some kind of box or something. They're trapped in one place, and they have to find a way to get out of the trap alive. This is more about them kind of being in a rat maze where they have freedom to move, but everywhere they go there's traps, if that makes sense. Stop the recording, or when we stop the video or whatever. He gets to the second floor. He hears a lot of screaming from one of the vents. It turns out the bad guy has the mom and the dad of the family in the basement, and he's torturing them. And at this point, it's kind of a race against the clock, basically. He has to somehow stay away from the bad guy, avoid all the traps, which they're everywhere. There's traps on the windows, there's traps in the hallways, there's traps attached to doorknobs, there's traps attached to everything in the house that could be used as a weapon. There's a trap attached to that. Everywhere he goes, everything he does, there's a trap. So he has to avoid all the traps. He has to run away from the bad guy, who every once in a while he'll hear Harkin making noise, so he'll come to try and find him. And it's really cool the couple of different ways that Harkin throws him off the scent. One of the best ones involves a cat. Just know that there's a cat, and the cat doesn't last long. But that was a really cool scene. I like that scene. But throughout the first movie, he's basically just trying to escape the bad guy, trying to avoid the traps. He tries to rescue the family. That doesn't work out at all. He promises the dad. He finds the dad point for point identical. It was always he just sticks someone in a trap, and they have to choose between being mutilated or being dead. You know, mutilating themselves somehow to get out of the trap, or being dead, or they're against a clock. Like there's a certain amount of time for them to get out. Stuff like that. But it was very predictable, and it got boring after a while. These two, like I said, they're very much like the second movie, which was very different from the other Saw movies in the way it played out. I don't know, not fundamentally different, but the way that they went about it was different. And in the first movie, like I said, he's in a house. The bad guy rigs up a house with traps. There's a family in the house. And the hero isn't actually someone from the family. He's from outside the family. He decides to break into the house. He's some kind of contractor that happened to be working on the house. He decides to break in the house and steal a diamond out of the safe. That's his motivation. That's why he's there. And I swear this guy is like a cosmic joke or something. I mean, he picks the one day of the year, the one day out of, 256 to break into this house, the one wrong day. These two movies follow that formula pretty closely. And the bad guy in this one, unlike Jigsaw, he's more like hands-on. He's in the house or the hotel in the second movie. He's there with them, and usually he's either chasing them or trying to torture one of them, or trying to find them, that kind of thing. He's actually there, involved in it, whereas Jigsaw was kind of behind the scenes. You didn't really see him much, and if you did, they didn't even know that he was the killer. In this case, the bad guy's running around with this crazy, evil-looking mask and these really weird, like, silver eyes. It's kind of like Pitch Black, Vin Diesel in Pitch Black. That's what his eyes look like. But he's always there. He's always chasing them around, trying to find them, trying to harm them, trying to capture them, stuff like that. And it turns out pretty good. I mean, that second movie in the Saw series was always my favorite anyways. I think the first one was really good, and I liked the second one even better. After that, they started doing the same formula over and over and over again, and it kind of got boring for me. Yes, the traps were different, but the plot was basically